Minnesota Twins, they avoid the sweep in New York today thanks to Pablo and company. We're breaking it all down next on the Locked On Twins POSTCAST.
You are Locked On Twins POSTCAST, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Back in the lab, back at it, another Minnesota Twins POSTCAST episode right here on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Network. Your team every day. You got myself, Luke Inman, at Luke_Spinman. That's the man, CJ Baumgartner. He's on X. Give him a follow, at BaumCJ30. CJ, have you gotten any sleep since all the moves the Twins made at the deadline? Did Falvey and Levine keep you up late last night or what?
Well, at first I thought you said they put me to sleep, and I was like, yeah, I got like a great 8 hours.
That could be too. Yeah, that could be too. We'll get into all the trade deadline stuff in segment 2 here in a little bit, but quick reminder first and foremost, today's episode brought to us by Prize Picks. Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB. Use code, all lowercase, LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Okay, game 3 today just got over. Twins trying to avoid the sweep. Desperately just need a win. Trying to get back on track here. 6.5 back from Cleveland heading into today. Pablo on the mound. Rock solid once again, 6 innings, 7 Ks, 2 earned runs. And it helps when you finally get some run support from the lineup too. Something Twins pitchers just really haven't gotten a lot of lately. Buxton starts the game out with his 13th home run of the year. Wallner, he stays hot, hits his 6th home run of the year, a 2-run bomb. That made it 6-2. Santana with an RBI double. Larnach, Kepler, Royce Lewis, all with RBI hits as well. So bats finally get rolling again. Cole Sands was fantastic. 6 pitches. That's all it took to get 3 outs. We got our first Randy Dobnak sighting with 1 inning of work. Duran comes in, shuts everything down in the 9th inning. That was pretty much all she wrote. Twins avoid the sweep today. Bats finally come alive a little bit. 59-48 now on the year. 6 back from Cleveland. Cleveland, I believe, has the day off today. I was looking. I don't think they play tonight. So I want to talk trade stuff with you. Still kind of the dust still settling from last night. We'll do all that in segment 2. But as always, kick us off. Biggest takeaways, kind of your A topics from today's game.
It's much more fun to watch Twins baseball when they can hit the ball around the yard, isn't it?
No kidding. Yeah.
The biggest takeaway, Byron Buxton, who got the Twins a lone run on Monday night, starts the Twins off with a home run and just blasts one and just gets everything going. And then the Twins playing a little small ball the next inning and having Martin steal and Larnach steal and Kepler coming through with big hit. And, overall, it was just fun to see them get that going again, because over the last 2 games, they weren't able to do that. So the biggest takeaways is just good to see the bats get going, and 8 runs is a, above average offensive output. So it's not like they, scored 15 runs like the Mets did on Monday night, but a very solid, very good offensive output. And, early on, Pablo Lopez gave up the home run, thought, here we go again. But like you talked about, giving them that run support allowed him to settle in and finish the job that he was able to do, and overall had a good outing.
And it feels like Pablo, let's just talk his day real quick. Feels like the arrow still pointing up a little bit, still building a little momentum the past, 5-6 starts or so. Again, 6 innings, 3 hits, 2 earned, 7 Ks. Like you said, gave up that 1 homer, 103 pitches on the day. I guess, what'd you see from his stuff? And then, both in the short term, what'd you see from his stuff today? But then kind of big picture, where is the temperature right now? Pablo, it feels like all year has kind of been up and down all over the map. Where's the temperature at with Pablo Lopez right now, building off these good outings the past, month and a half or so?
Well, big picture for Pablo Lopez, it's kind of felt like the Minnesota Twins in the beginning of the season, where it's like up and down, up and down. And then all of a sudden it slowly starts to trend upward. And then you don't notice, there's no big Herculean leap, but all of a sudden it's just steady performance after steady performance. Then when it's all said and done, you just feel a lot more confident about him. And that's kind of what it was like for the Twins this year, with the big losing streaks and the winning streaks. Then all of a sudden it's just winning series after series after series. With Pablo, it's the same way of blow-up starts at the beginning, followed by a glimmer every once in a while. But over the last month, he's just been able to stack good start on top of good start on top of good start. And, I don't have his numbers in front of me, but he's just able to stabilize himself. He's not going to have maybe the same stat line he did a year ago, but overall, if he can just get himself back into building into that above average starter, getting into a good mind. Once you get him into those big moments we've seen before, even throughout this season, that Pablo can lock it in the big moments. So it's just been really good. He's the staff ace. He's the guy who needs to anchor everything. And no matter how good the pitchers 2 through 5 are behind Pablo Lopez, just to have your ace leading that rotation again, it's just a really, really great feeling.
If I were to ask you maybe 2-3 weeks ago, maybe even a week ago after Bailey Ober's performance, who would start game 1 of a Twins playoff series? Is it still a no-brainer just by default? It's got to be Pablo. Was there some questions there? Was it debatable at least a week, a month ago? Where are we at right now? Who's your game 1 starter? Is it clear-cut, no-brainer? It's Pablo Lopez?
I think it's always going to be Pablo, just because of the way he did it, the way he handled his business last year. I think you just give him the benefit of the doubt and say he'll probably do that again. And we've seen glimmers of it throughout the year so far. So enough for somebody to think in a 1-game setting, sure, he gets the nod. But that game 2 starter is very fascinating because Joe Ryan has been consistently good all year long, but Bailey Ober is just really, outside of playing the Kansas City Royals, that guy is unstoppable.
Flashes of dominance, right? Maybe that's what you want to gamble and roll the dice on come playoff time. Perhaps. I don't know.
Right. Efficient, pitching a lot of innings. And that's the biggest thing, inning length in playoffs doesn't always matter, but having a guy like Ober, remember last year in the playoffs, the Twins did not trust Ober and Ryan really to pitch that deep into ball games. Maybe got 2-3 innings and they're like, get him out of there before things go haywire.
Yeah.
That's going to be much different if they get into the playoffs this season.
Pull up your Twins July bingo card. Did you have Randy Dobnak sighting on that bingo card for your Twins?
I did not.
I don't think anybody probably did. If you did, props to you. How funny, how great was that, man? We got a little bit of everything during that 1 inning too, right? 1 walk, 1 hit, 1 strikeout. Again, 1 inning of work, no earned runs, obviously. Kind of the perfect spot to kind of ease him in, bring him back to life, so to speak, when you're up 8-2 in the ball game in the 8th inning. What'd you like from him? And where's he kind of fit in the bullpen depth chart power ranking, so to speak?
Well, yeah, I mean, first of all, it's just really cool to see Dobnak get back here. He was a really easy guy to root for in 19 and 20, obviously the Uber driver story, and end up starting a playoff game for the Twins in 2019. And then in 2020 became a very effective pitcher. And in 2021 earning like a 5-6 year extension, which was really cool. And then it's the cautionary tale of why you don't sign a guy to a long-term extension and buy out their service time, because he's been making a lot of money just to not do anything for the team over the last few years. He's had some finger injuries, obviously, but he just hadn't quite been able to get back to that mountaintop, got kicked off the 40-man roster at points throughout early in the season. And now for him to get added back onto the 40-man roster to make that big league appearance again is really cool. Because like you talked about, I didn't think he was going to touch the big league club this year. And for him to get up here, like you talked about, a very low leverage spot to come in, get those butterflies out of there and get rolling, and is really big for this team. The Twins tried to do it on Monday night with Brock Stewart, put him in a very low leverage spot to get his feet under him, and he struggled because he was hurt, but still struggled. So for Dobnak to come in there, give him a couple base runners, still able to clean up that mess, no earned runs, get back on there, is really, really cool, because this bullpen, like I just said, Brock Stewart went on the IL. Josh Stamont has been DFA'd. Caleb Thielbar has been unreliable this season. There's just been a lot of flux outside of Jax and Duran at the top of the bullpen over the last month. And so for them to get a fresh face in there, and now a couple fresh faces, it'll just be a nice little interesting palette into the mix. Dobnak is still going to be in that low leverage relief type role, but somebody's got to fill it.
Yeah, no, at a certain point, they just needed some warm bodies back there for sure. And again, just a cool, fun story for a lot of Twins fans that have followed his story and path the last handful of years. I'm thinking about the just bullpen situation now. And again, we'll talk Trevor Richards and the whole trade stuff in segment 2. But Justin Topa, could he be coming back soon too, right? Or I guess what's the latest with Justin Topa? Could we see him in the mix here in the next week or so?
I believe if I read it right, Topa kind of slowly easing back into things, and whatever the report ends up being fully, I don't know. He just hasn't. I think the report is initially he opted not to get surgery until after the season to have a chance of coming back to play. At this point, I'm just trying to be realistic. I'll believe it when I see it, because right now it feels like it's like you talked about. We've been wondering, hey, Justin Topa coming back in a couple weeks, and it just hasn't happened yet. So until I actually see him in a Twins jersey on the active roster, I'm just going to assume that he's not really going to help the team.
Yeah, I think we've been teased so long, kind of dragged along for so long. At this point, the bar is set so low. If he does come back at all, just kind of playing with house money at this point, and then we'll see how next year. He's a free agent. Is he gone, or do they still have another year?
Double check that. I want to say
I was just curious.
Some team control.
Rocco Report time. Game 3 versus the Mets. The Rocco Report. It says what?
Overall, again, putting in Dobnak, letting him kind of get his feet underneath him, pitching Cole Sands, again, a lower leverage reliever for your team. I think obviously when you're up big is good. Bringing in Duran, I think, was a way to try and get his confidence back up, and the mixed results. So, I don't know if that's a good, bad, or otherwise kind of thing, but I think very clearly Rocco was trying to help get Duran right by bringing him in an 8-1 ball game or whatever it was at that point, just to try and see if he could fix some of not what's been necessarily wrong, but it just feels like Duran has always been kind of up and down, just a little weird this season.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well said there. Good breakdown. Plenty more deep dive from this one, plus nerdy stat of the day. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, today's episode brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. In eBay Motors, they got everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to the ultimate peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights. They got it all. And whether you're into speed, power, or style, they got you covered with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back, with all the parts you need at the prices you want. Easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay's Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Okay, trade deadline is come and gone. Dust kind of still settling. Trevor Richards, a lot of people joking. Some people frustrated, saying, Trevor Richards, never even heard of her. Who? Trevor Richards? And it's like, okay, I get it. The fans did not like how the trade deadline kind of unfolded here. Lou kind of talked us off the ledge a little bit last night. What was your thoughts, as this move specifically and just the trade deadline kind of came and went last night? What's your overall synopsis, your overall grade, I guess, from the front office and their decisions, or should I say their lack of?
I mean, I'd say trade deadline's like a C for giving like a letter grade.
Okay.
Because like we talked about on Monday, I didn't really come in with the expectation. Like we talked about, I didn't expect to make a trade at all. That was about, if they were going to make a move, just a very low leverage move to acquire another bullpen arm. And they really needed just somebody in here to help out the group. So that it's something, in the grand scheme of things, I don't think that there was anybody worth selling the farm for. And according to Dan Hayes of The Athletic, if the Twins wanted to try and get like a Fetty or a Crochet or a Flaherty, any of those guys from the White Sox and or Tigers, it was going to require literally like Brooks Lee or Emmanuel Rodriguez or some of those top guys untouchable. Now I know there's some money stuff and maybe that's painting just kind of too clear, not a little vague, but I mean, overall, I think I wasn't coming in with too big of expectations, because really outside of those top guys, those are rentals. And even if the money wasn't going to be a thing, I just don't know how much one of those guys impacts you, unless it is like a Flaherty, unless it is like a Fetty or a Crochet, somebody who's one of those very, very top guys. And the Yankees were going to trade for Fetty, according to Dan Hayes' report, and then they didn't like his medicals. So if we talk about the Twins wanting to trade for injured pieces, the guy didn't have great medicals. So I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's frustrating because I don't necessarily blame this trade deadline on the front office. And again, I'm going to be a broken record for every Twins fan here. We all know the reason why this team feels hamstrung. It's not because of the GM and president of baseball operations feeling content or feeling like they don't need to do anything, because last year they felt content and they didn't do anything at the deadline. That was fine. But this time it really just feels like they're hamstrung with just not being able to have any money to operate on this self-imposed payroll limit. And that's, I think, what frustrates fans more than not being able to make a trade. Is just the fact of that it feels like even though the front office may want to make a move, they're just not able to from the guys above.
Yeah, and I think, and this is just, again, putting myself through the lens in the shoes of the fan base. It's not, the frustration doesn't stem from just this trade deadline. If you were to go back, I'd have to 6, 7, 8 years, and I can pull it up real quick. But I know there's been at least 6 different times the Twins were either leading the division or within striking distance. And 5 of the 6 times at the deadline, they didn't make any type of splash. Sure, they might have made a move or two, but nothing that moved the needle at all. And the one time they finally did push the chips all in, the Tyler Mahle year, it blew up in their face. So 6 times they've been close to making a run. If they could just maybe get another piece or two, move the needle a little bit. And 5 of the 6 times, only once, did they actually push the chips in? So 5 of the 6 times they stayed put, they stayed idle, they stayed in neutral. I think that warrants some frustrations from the fan. But I get it. I understand it. Do you?
Yeah, no, I understand why people are frustrated. And even if it doesn't make the most baseball sense, I understand why, because you see teams ripping and making moves. You see the Kansas City Royals.
It's fun. Yeah, it's fun in the moment anyways. Yeah.
Right. It's teams and fan bases getting, but here we go, stretch run. Who are we getting to come help us
right
through the final couple months of the season, just to see them add a 6th inning reliever.
Right.
Doesn't, it's not going to push excitement for a fan base. But like you talked about, they pushed in a couple of years ago and it blew up in their face. So it's a cautionary tale. And they didn't make a move last year, and they were one of the best teams in baseball past the trade deadline in 2023. So it's not necessarily a barometer for your team's success. The teams that win the trade deadline don't always win the World Series. Rarely do they.
Right.
But again, just from a pure fan enjoying your team perspective, just be nice to have something to kind of feel like, here we go, all in.
Just that they're being aggressive. And again, doesn't always pan out, but it just feels like, okay, they want this. Let's be aggressive. Only one team can win it in the end. Let's push our chips in and go for it. If you think you're close and are just a piece or two away, do you think this expanded playoffs impacted the deadline and the lack of teams that were kind of sellers compared to years past? Do you think that played a bigger factor than people thought it would? And do you think this is going to be kind of the new norm now with 2 extra teams fighting for that extra playoff spot?
Well, I think, when fans saw the expanded playoffs, everybody likes it. Better chance for my team to get in the playoffs. And I think that's generally a good thing for baseball. One of the unintended consequences of that is just more teams are in the playoff mix come the trade deadline, which again is good overall. But again, an unintended consequence is that means that there's less teams trying to trade. So it means a couple things. One, less players available at the deadline to go get. The other thing that it also means is that those players that are available, well, supply and demand dictates that they're now more expensive.
Right.
And that's where, again, trading Tyler Mahle for a couple of those guys that they gave up, and even not making a deal last year, there's a bit more of a sticker shock that comes with trading at the deadline than compared to 10-ish, 20 years ago. And, obviously expanded playoffs, more teams getting in is good for the game. I like the current playoffs where they're at, but one of the unintended side effects is, more teams feel like they have a shot because it's not just those 2 extra spots. It's the 3 teams that all of a sudden now are within the margin of error to try and go make a push. So
basically, if the Twins weren't going to be aggressive prior to this new playoff this new playoff blueprint, I guess you'll call it, they're probably definitely not going to be, unless it's truly just okay, we can't pass up this offer. It's more than fair. We're only this piece or 2 away. Plus the money stuff all lines up. All the boxes need to be checked. Perhaps from here on forward, looking into the future, on next year's or future trade deadlines for the Twins, because I think you're right, and I think it does make a lot of sense. And I'm thinking about the ripple effect now, the snowball effect in the future off seasons, knowing that, okay, teams probably understand we're not going to be able to, or at least our options are going to be a lot more limited come trade deadline time in the 3.5 months, right? In at the end of July. Maybe they're going to be more aggressive in the off seasons then as well. I'm just trying to think about the snowball effect in the off season when that time comes.
Well, yeah, I mean, you see the Twins, I mean, they make the Pablo Lopez trade in the offseason. They make some of those trades. It's just a lot
Yeah.
easier to pull off during the winter because everybody's idle. You're not pushing, you're not, you're not in a playoff chase and stuff like that. That's more of the ideal time. And for just it just kind of depends on the year, I think. It just depends on who's available. If there was a few more starting pitchers available to get, I think the Twins would have gotten somebody. And in fact, there's a report from Dan Hayes, the Athletic, that the Twins were really close to getting Kikuchi from the Blue Jays.
That's right.
The Astros came in and blew the doors off of them. Well, what are you going to do? The Astros overpaid. Tanner Scott was a name from the Marlins I thought would have made some sense. And you got in a bidding, and I don't know if the Twins were ever in on him, but the Padres came in and came on with a bid and a big 4 prospect trade. And if you're trying to get in a bidding war with the Padres, you're just going to lose, especially when it comes to prospects. So trades are just hard to pull off. And I think there's a whole lot of other varying circumstances that come into making something work.
And usually in most sports, you get what you pay for. And I don't think any Twins fan, at least from the names that were available anyways, we're going to be okay parting with any of these top 3, even maybe top 5 prospects right now in the farm system too. I mean, when it comes to Walker Jenkins and Brooks Lees and Rodriguez and guys like that, boy, you need a really big name, I feel like, to justify that and sleep easy at night, because those are really the crux, the core foundation of your future right there too. So, and who knows? I mean, we're not behind the scenes. We don't know exactly what those trade offers look like, but I know some of those deals teams were asking for and said, you got to include one of these top 3 prospects. And I just don't think fans, let alone the GM and the team and Rocco and everybody else, would have been on board for that. How about Cleveland, by the way? Just real quick, 30 seconds on Cleveland. Do you like what they did? How much better did they get? Do we need to fear them even more? Lane Thomas, an outfielder, Alex Cobb, a pitcher. How much do you think that moves the needle for them, if at all?
Lane Thomas, kind of around a Manuel Margot type, is what they added. Platoon corner outfielder, not a ton of offensive production, can run a little bit. I know some people thought maybe the Twins could trade for him last trade deadline, and that never materialized. But overall, just fine. He's not going to move the needle much for Cleveland, but an extra person to help them out on the stretch run and just give them another kind of person in that lineup. For Alex Cobb, this is a fascinating one because I think some people look to this and go, well, the Guardians are getting a starting pitcher. They went and got Alex Cobb, but I mean, Alex Cobb hasn't pitched all year long. He's had setback after setback after setback this year.
This sounds like the perfect Twins prospect to go
exactly.
get. Perfect guy to go target. Are you kidding me?
Right. The fact that the Twins told them no means that, like, if they're not comfortable with that guy, they've been known to take risks on some of those injured guys. The fact that they weren't, I think overall for Cleveland, it's just a couple low wattage moves that could help them. Maybe Alex Cobb comes back and pitches well and Lane Thomas can do some stuff for him. But it's not like when they got Edwin Encarnacion in like 16 and you're like, like they're gearing up. It's, the pieces of that team are still in place. That were already there that made them scary.
Who they are. Yeah. All right. Nerdy side of the daytime. Any crazy stat or, fun analytic, Twins related, of course. What do you got today? Lay it on us.
Well, looking at Randy Dobnak, who made his debut in 2024, last pitched in the big leagues in 2021. When he was there, he had a 4-pitch mix where he threw a 4-seam fastball and a changeup and a slider and a sinker. Now, primarily, he did throw the sinker and the slider, kind of just off those 2 pitches, threw in the changeup, and really started to phase out his fastball. And it looks like, based off his pitching today, maybe it all could change. He only threw 28 pitches, but he threw 17 from the slider, 7 from the sinker, and 4 from the changeup. So, and maybe people who've been following him throughout in AAA have a better pulse on this than I do, but it looks like he's starting to phase out that fastball entirely and become just a 3-pitch pitcher, which is important because bullpen guys typically only have 1 to 3 pitches anyway. Sometimes they even have 2, like Trevor Richards, the guy who the Twins just traded for, who is a changeup and fastball guy. So fascinating to see if Dobnak ditches the fastball and just goes to those 3 pitches.
Yeah, going to be interesting just to see his progression, how he develops, and just what he looks like the more and more innings that go on. All right, don't go anywhere. We got to preview Game 1 versus Chicago, the White Sox. Joe Ryan on the mound for that one. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, today's episode also brought to us by Prize Picks. Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members to date. And for me and my money, I just swear by it. It's by far the easiest and most exciting way to get in on all the action while you watch your favorite sports and you watch your favorite players. All you got to do, so simple, you pick more or you pick less on 2 or more player stats, and you watch the winnings roll in. Baseball season, obviously in full swing. So whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, home runs, you name it, they got it. Take your pick on more or less and add them to your Prize Picks entry today. Plus, they now offer Apple Pay for quick and easy deposits into your account all season long. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code, this is all lowercase, Locked On MLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Okay, day off tomorrow, back at home finally, Friday versus the White Sox. They still stink, right? Like, they're atrocious, right? Like, they're going for the loss record, right? Like, how bad do the Twins need to go take two out of 3 versus them, if not even sweep the darn thing?
Well, Luke, I got some good news for you. You're batting cleanup for the White Sox on Friday.
I love that guy. Wow. Okay. The dreams come true. Make-A-Wish Foundation. I love it. Okay.
Yeah, because they've traded so many of their guys. They traded Eloy Jimenez, and they traded some of these guys where it's like it just, remember, I mean, even 3 years ago, they felt like they were the team on the rise, and it's just unrecognizable from where they're at right now. They've traded so many of their big league players. It really feels like a team that's just running on fumes to get to the end of the year. I think I saw somebody on Twitter put out the fact that Pedro Grifol, their manager, has like the worst winning percentage throughout the first 300 games as a manager since like some dude who managed the Phillies during World War II, who was like a dentist in his day job or something like that. Like,
that's a fun fact right there. Stump the Schwab fact right there. Dude, they've lost 16 in a row, and they're about to lose their 17th as we record this right now. Bottom 9 versus Kansas City. 17 in a row.
You never want to predict a sweep because sweeps are hard in baseball.
Yeah, sweeps are tough.
But man, anything other than a sweep feels like a disappointment, won't it? Just on a gut level.
I agree. I totally agree, especially just knowing we're getting close. We're not there yet, but we're getting close to crunch time with this whole 2024 season, and being 6 back right now from Cleveland. When you got a team, an opponent like this, and you get them at home after 6 games on the road, now you get to come back home. You're starting to get everybody healthy. Joe Ryan on the mound game 1. Come on, man. You got to take advantage of these because you're going to look back. Otherwise, at the end of the year, you're going to look back on series like these and say, man, we definitely missed an opportunity, during these kind of situations. First, 17 in a row. Come on now. That's terrible. I'm looking at the schedule right now. Now that I got pulled up, 3 with Chicago, then 3 more with the other Chicago, the Chicago Cubs. And then it's the big showdown, man. They've got 8 games left with Cleveland. So 4 of them takes place after that Chicago Cubs series. 8 games left with Cleveland, 6 back as of this very moment as we sit here and record this. Again, Cleveland, they got the day off today. When you look at the rest of this schedule, right, only 2 months left, August and September, how soft or how tough is it compared to like league ranks and averages and things like that? And is everything ultimately for the Twins going to come down to those 8 games versus the Guardians they have left?
I mean, generally speaking, I think the Twins had one of the softer schedules in baseball throughout the second half of the season post All-Star break. Okay. Now, I think the White Sox being on the schedule a couple times is going to skew that a little bit. Mm-hmm. But I mean, this is going to be a tough month. When you look at, you're talking about the White Sox and the Cubs are both teams that are not serious contenders this season. But then it's the 4 with Cleveland, 3 with Kansas City, 4 on the road in Texas, 3 on the road in San Diego, 3 at home against St. Louis, 3 at home against Atlanta, and 3 at home against Toronto, who aren't where they want to be, but still no pushovers.
Yep.
I mean, that's a tough month of August. And then you have only 1 more series with Cleveland in September, which is a 4-game set. You have the Orioles and the Royals, again, a couple more times throughout the season. This is going to be we're going to learn a lot about this team at the throughout this month of August. It's going to be a dogfight once they get through these first 2 series against the Chicago teams. Buckle up. It's going to be a lot of fun.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Again, love crunch time, especially in baseball, all sports, but especially in baseball, man. September, October baseball, so great. So what needs to happen, you think, just numbers wise? Like, what's the minimum amount of games they got to win versus Cleveland in those 8 games? Because I don't know if a split's going to do it. Like, then you need so much extra help and have to just be on your A game the rest of the way in every other series. But even 5 of 8 though feels like a pretty nice swing there. Like that's doable. That's manageable.
Right. I think 5 of those 8 games, I really think 6-2 is just the number that's been sticking in my head.
Okay.
If they're about 5.5 games back right now, you go 6-2.
Yep.
That moves it to, that's
two
4 games playing,
yeah.
You're a game and a half out.
Yeah.
That's really that zone. They're 5 games out right now, I guess. So then they'd be a game out, and then it's anybody's ball game in that spot. Now, 5 wins, then it's 2 games. That's still close enough within that margin of error that one series could still kind of swing things. And against Kansas City, I think they just need to win those series. They have 2 3-game series left versus the Royals. If you just go 4-2 in those games, I think you'll be all right. Even splitting those, I don't think is the end of the world, because
Sure.
the Twins have been able to win their other series this season against Kansas City, but they haven't got a win against the Guardians yet this year. They're going to need to get a lot of them in a hurry if they want to catch them.
Well, you think about that alone, that's the difference between 6 games back versus a tie in the AL Central versus leading the AL Central, man. You haven't won a game versus Cleveland yet. So again, 8 games left with Cleveland. I think the 2024 Twins season definitely hinges on those 8 games. Last one, then we got to get out of here. Trevor Richards, is he going to be ready Friday? Well, what do you think the game plan is? Obviously, a low leverage situation probably needs to unfold for him before we see him in play, but Trevor Richards, just kind of his game plan.
So, yeah, as mentioned before, he's a 2-pitch pitcher. He throws the fastball and he throws the changeup. He throws the changeup about 57% of the time this season. That's the pitch. That's kind of, if he can get that right, things are going to be good. He has a negative 2 pitch ranking with his changeup this season. But before that, if you look at a season ago, he was very effective with that. He had a +8 on his changeup in terms of a run value. So if he can get that changeup working, he can be a nice middle reliever. And really, and I have a piece coming up soon talking about this, really kind of what the spectrum of outcomes could be for Richards. And basically the lower end is like Dylan Floro, where he's fine, but not great. You don't really trust him, but he's there throughout the rest of the season. Basically, what's the highest percentile outcome for Richards? And that's what Michael Fulmer was to the Twins a couple of years ago. Just a nice, solid. Fulmer didn't get a ton of high leverage spots, but he came in, had an ERA under 4 in the final 2 months of the season for the Twins. And I think if he can just somewhere in that range for where Michael Fulmer is at, because he didn't have great underlying numbers either, but he just got the job done, was able to pitch in low leverage spots and just kind of be one person to take the load off. And I think if he can be anywhere in that category, I think he'll have a pretty good Twins tenure in these next 2 months.
Love it. Looking forward to that. Day off tomorrow. Then finally, again, back at home Friday versus the Sox in the backyard at Target Field. First pitch Friday, 7:10 p.m. Again, Joe Ryan on the mound for game 1. Huge shout out to all the everydayers out there that always make us your first listen. Rest assured, we'll be back each and every game right here, breaking it all down. Quick reminder, got to go check out all of CJ's work on Twitter at BombCJ30, plus all the work he's always ripping up over at ZoneCoverageMN.com as well. Go like this video, subscribe to the channel. So close to 8,000 subscribers. That's always much, much appreciated. But that'll do it for us today. CJ Baumgartner, check him out over at ZoneCoverageMN. Luke Inman on X at Luke_Spinman. We'll see you next time. But until then, signing out.